Hi, guys. Welcome back to another podcast. Today, we have a very special guest in our podcast, and her name is Elizabeth from jungler.com. Elizabeth, for those people who don't know you, could you please introduce yourself and let people know what you do basically?
Yeah, for sure. I'm one of the co-founders of Amazon Ad Agency. So that's where Jungler.com comes in. We focus on brands who have just crossed over the $1 million mark. They're really looking to scale. We found we work better with brands who like to move fast, particularly founder-led brands. And for those who are just really struggling to figure out what in their ads is holding them back, and they need a partner to be able to take over, that strategic decisions of their advertising so they can focus on other areas of the business. And then those two things really help accelerate growth.
Cool. Thank you for introducing yourself. So let's just dive into the podcast. So I've listed down some questions for you. So my first question is, how do you handle the CPCs nowadays? Do you have like any suggestions for the Amazon sellers who are facing like higher CPCs in their niche?
Yes, I will give you two answers on that. One answer is pick your battle when it comes to CPCs. So the hardest thing with the increase in the CPCs is just the increase in costs. And if you really want to break down a cost, it's a function of what's the conversion rate on that keyword, what is the cost per click on that keyword, and then how much money do you make at the end of the day. Um, your conversion rate determines how many clicks on average it takes to make a sale. The CPC determines how much you're paying for each of those clicks. So those things together make up your ad spend. And of course, at the end of the day, your sale price is going to make up like how much money you make once you convert that order. And the price typically remains somewhat constant. Oftentimes, it doesn't make sense to like significantly increase your sale price to help balance out a cost, because the market's only going to be okay with paying so much before you really start losing out on sales, because people go to lower price options. So you're left, especially on the ad side, with lowering CPC, increasing conversion rate. How you can do that is really by picking your battles and finding which targets you get ideally lower CPC on, but you can make up for a lower or a higher CPC by going after things that you have a better conversion rate on. Uh, that's kind of how you can balance it. Now, that answer to the question may not be satisfactory for some of your listeners, because they're going to be like, well, I have to rank on this keyword. Because oftentimes I'll get that question. It's like, hey, how do I rank on this main keyword? I'm like, well, increase your bid so you can show up high top of search, get a lot of clicks, and those clicks should translate to a lot of orders if you're converting, and all of those orders add to increase in your ranking, right? But that's not actually the question that most people are asking. They're saying, how do I rank on this keyword without having to spend too much? Unfortunately, it's just the name of the game right now. A lot of people are dissatisfied with the increase in CPCs, myself included. It's not a fun situation to navigate, I'll be honest. But there is one way in which you can navigate this, and that is through leveraging budget. Now, this is a more advanced way to do it, because it takes a lot of testing. You really have to know your market and understand your products and figure out how to get it right. There's a lot of talk in the space on never let yourself go out of budget. If you're going out of budget, you're losing sales. If anything runs out of budget, your sales are going to tank and your competitors outranking you, and like everything is terrible. That's not necessarily true. I will concede that you are losing out on ad impression. But the question is that loss in ad impressions really leading to a decrease in your organic ranking? The answer might be yes or no. But how to actually test whether the answer is true for you is going to be just that, test it and see. So this strategy, like I said, is a little bit more advanced, but if you really need to be able to go aggressive with your bids, this is probably going to be a strategy. Sometimes you can have your cake and eat it too. Really, how well this strategy works is dependent on the budget you can afford to allocate toward this, and how competitive that search page is. And that will determine, kind of how much you can get away with this strategy. Because oftentimes to lower the CPC, what you need to do is you need to lower your bid. The problem with lowering your bid is that you're going to show up lower in search, right? The goal is to gain a lot of sales. If you're not showing up high in search with your ads, you're probably not getting the sales volume you want. So you're kind of left between this rock and a hard place of, I can't afford to completely pay for all of these clicks. It's really, really expensive. But at the same time, I need to show up high in search. I can't afford to lower my bids because then my ads are nowhere to be found and I'm not getting the sales I need. The good middle ground for this is you can maintain aggressive bids, which maintains a high search visibility and should get a lot more clicks. But what you can do is you can cap the amount that you pay for that traffic by capping your budget. So there's a lot of people in the space who are advocating for never listen your never cap with budgets, only cap with bids. That will work in some scenarios, but the problem is, again, sometimes the bid you have to set to be able to afford that is way too low to get any search. And so, again, basically the way that we do this is we say, okay, to rank on this keyword, ideally I need to have X amount of order, right? And so I can say, well, if my conversion rate is, let's go 10%, right? 1 divided by 0.10 or 0.1 is going to be 10. So it takes me 10 clicks on average to get an actual sale. If I want to get 5 orders, right, I need to be able to have 50 clicks on this keyword to get 5 orders. If my bid is $1, well, that's $50. So maybe I wouldn't do the maths like that aggressively. I wouldn't cap it like that, but like, okay, if I think I need 5 orders, it's going to take me $50. And then I can say at the end of that $50, maybe I'll just cut off it. I would probably go higher than that. I might test, like 80, 75, like maybe you want to slowly bring it down. But that's a good way where you can still remain aggressive, but then still control costs. Because the problem is you go all out aggressive most time, way too expensive. And you can lose really, really fast.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. So you talked about like echoes in the start. So do you consider like echoes a key metrics when it comes to Amazon PPC?
I think it honestly has to be. The reason why is because we don't get total A cost on a keyword level, and we never will. Because to be able to get total A cost on a keyword level, you have to definitively know how many of my sales are coming from this keyword. If you got that data, you would be able to calculate it easy. You can't. And there's no way to 100% accurately even try. Trust me, I went down the rabbit hole of trying to look in search query performance, like hoping we would, you're not going to find it. And so for that reason, A cost becomes more important. Now, where I think you really need to be careful is if a low A cost target is going to destroy your overall organic visibility. In that case of your question of like, is A cost the best target? Probably not. So what we do is we would look at an overall goal of the account or for that individual campaign or maybe even that individual target. So what is my goal here? My goal is to, okay, so therefore I can be more aggressive. A really good example of this would be supplements, or we have one brand that we're looking at what's in skincare. The CPCs in that market are insane, right? Really, really high, really, really expensive. A cost for shop with Shush is really expensive. If we were only looking at A cost, we would say, well, it doesn't make any sense for us to go after this. But the brand owners are very savvy and they've recognized, hey, I have a really good customer lifetime value to skincare products, so there's a lot of repeat purchases. So for me to acquire a customer at even 200% A cost, I'm actually profitable there. And so it's worth it for us to go after. So you want to keep in mind, again, like the overall account and goals. But in some ways, if you're like looking at just A cost for a lot of your targets, like maybe your auto campaigns, your lower bid campaigns, or maybe even your brand defense campaigns, it probably makes sense to go after more profitability there.
Okay, and like what do you suggest when you have to see more data than the like SQP reports? Like if you have to go further than that, what do you see? Like how do you dig more into it for like data?
For search query reports or just ranking in general, or
Yeah, search query report.
so I like search query report. Where people run into a lot of trouble um is thinking that search query performance reports contain all of the data, all the search data, all the sales data for that particular search query. That's incorrect. If you read the documentation, it only includes data that is like within the search grid. So any kind of like widgets, it's also not going to include product pages. It's not going to include any like say offsite traffic or, somebody purchasing through say a brand page. So it's not going to include all of the data you get from the product. I know there's a lot of like, I don't argue against taking search query report, looking for potential. And then there's a lot of people who have connected it to like search term impression share and said like, okay, where do we have a distinct advantage? Where are we losing out on impression share? I like that correlation, but I think you need to be really careful with how you do that. One of my favorite ways to use search query performance is to benchmark against competitors on a very specific search term. Whenever you're comparing data from within the same report, you are comparing apples to apples. So you can be very confident of that analysis. Where it gets kind of tricky is when you start like taking a report like that that's missing data and then saying like, okay, I'm going to connect it to this other report and the data points don't really line up. See, it's not that you can't make those correlations. You just have to understand the source data and make sure you're not drawing incorrect conclusions because like the data points.
Right. And then back to the CPCs again, like how do you deal with like products which have like low reviews, high competition, high CPCs? I know it a lot depends on the type of products, but yeah, in general, like what's your strategy on that?
I mean, it depends on the brands and the brand's goals, honestly. Lower conversion rate products, typically speaking, you want to analyze longer date ranges, especially if it's a very high price product. We've advertised some products where like it's very specific, like scientific equipment, and price points above $200. It's really, it's really really niche, and a big investment. So what you'll find is that like you go into the ad account and like one day it's like 100% ACoS and the next day it's like 2% ACoS and the next day it's like 50%. And like you're looking at it, you're like, if I optimized for the 2% day, I would have overspent on the 100% day. And then if I optimized for 100, I would have been like, how do you make sense of all that? So a lot of times you look over larger date ranges to sort of smooth out those really erratic performance. So that can be helpful. I mean, as far as navigating it, to be honest, there's only so much you can do with a poor performing. As much as you absolutely need to do right by every single product to the best of your abilities, the best ad strategy in the world is not going to fix a crappy product. And I know that's going to hurt the audience to say. And the thing is if we tried to run an all-out aggressive strategy on those products, we would lose money. It's not going to make any sense. So in the product categories, we're like, top of search is crazy expensive. Aggressive ranking campaigns are expensive. Conversion rates are very low. I don't know what I can do. I go back to the drawing board and we say, what do we have that is working? Maybe it's a little bit auto campaign. Maybe it's a category target campaign. And you're probably going to find something that in your soul as an ad manager, you're going, I know this is not the best. Like, if I were left to my own devices, I would not only be going after product targeting. But when you look in the campaign, you're like, that is the only affordable CPCs I can get. So either you lose money or you run outside of the box advertising. So in those cases, we just look for outside of the box. Outside of the box being what is performing and what can we possibly do within our power to maximize that. Be it, oh, we noticed product targeting work. Can we use product targeting in sponsor display ads? Oh, we noticed that this low bid auto works on these random long tail keywords. Maybe we throw those in a manual. Like, just trying to maximize, like, what data can we validate that there is something that works for this product? And then sometimes you just got to roll with that, even though that's like outside the norm of quote best.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So when it comes to like sponsor product campaigns, so how do you like weightage when it comes to exact, phrase, and broad? Like, how do you put weightage on these when you make campaigns for like these maze types?
Honestly, I wouldn't overthink it. There's a lot of people who are like, oh, I need to have X amount for exact and this much for broad, and like, I need to only have it. There is no quote best match. Now, certain match types will work better in certain scenarios, and a good ad manager is going to know, oh, I've tested exact match and I'm going aggressive, but I'm not getting performance. Well, maybe I should test this phrase match because that one I know gives me more narrow focus, but I still can go to branch out, and sometimes those get better impressions. Like, if you understand the nuances of the platform, you know how to roll with the punches and what to test next. But for someone new coming into the game and they're like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm going to be like, I have to get this balance. There is no perfect balance because it's all dependent on the product. One product is like broad match is absolutely going to crush it, and you're not going to be able to get an exact match to work. And you're going to be pulling your hair out and saying, quote, best practice tells me I absolutely must force this. But if I'm losing money, it doesn't make sense. Probably not. And so it's really about it. We're in the test all match types crowd. And other things is I don't believe that phrase and broad match are only valuable for discovery campaign. I think you should continuously run them, and I would not negate what you're doing in exact match and those other ad types. That being said, every single individual target is going to get optimized for its individual performance, and it is good practice to not scale broad. Whenever I say scale it, it's equivalent to increase, honestly. I should probably just start saying increase. But sometimes you use the word scale and everybody's like, what is that? Increase. Meaning increase fits in this case. But you need to be careful with how much you can increase, how much you're increasing the bids in broad match. Because oftentimes if performance is great, you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Increase the bid. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. You need to keep increasing the bid. The problem with doing that is that if broadband has a tendency to trigger a ton of different search terms, and so in the case of like autos, broad, category, etc., when there's a ton of different search terms that can be triggered, the potential places that you're spending that really high CPC is like exponential. And so there's a tendency for like all of a sudden ads to really start spending too much and wasting. So you just want to be careful.
Okay, and like, what are your 5 best campaigns at launch?
Oh, at launch. Okay. They're gonna ask in general. Like honestly, exact match sponsored products for the first couple weeks. That's all we do. Now, honestly, doing well on a launch is contingent on one, just how good is the product, right? That as much as we ad managers want to take credit for everything, our life is easier if the product's good. Our life is a heck of a lot harder if the product's not well. This is the name of the game. But the success of your launch is going to be determined by what keyword you target, and also how well your ad strategy aligns with the client's brands, or if you're running it for yourself, your budget and expectations. To be honest, I just filmed a kind of like an overview of like a product launch strategy, and my first point is like understand what you can afford. Because I've talked to so many brands that they get in there and they're like, oh, I watched a YouTube video and I had this checklist of like these 5 different campaigns that I absolutely have to run, and everybody told me I had to get like 100 keywords, and I have to go after the top keywords. And so they'll build out that ad structure, and they'll freak out when they go in the next day and they're like, I just spent $200 in a day, or maybe my budget was 50. Or some of those, if you're in a specific category like supplements, if you run that strategy, you probably spend a couple $1,000s in 24 hours. And nobody told them that that was the possibility. And they're like, oh my gosh, I can't afford this. This is crazy. And so they'll have to just shut it off, and they're left with hesitation. We're like, it wasn't anything you did wrong. You probably followed it right. And it's not that that strategy was bad. It was that strategy didn't align with what you need. So a good rule of thumb is that the bigger your ad budget, the higher search volume keyword you can afford to go after, and the more keyword you can afford to go after. The lower your budget, probably want to go a little bit more long tail, and you probably want to pick less keywords. Now, with long tail and less keywords, that means the amount of orders you can expect is going to be much lower. So bigger budget, bigger potential for sales, lower budget, lower potential for sales. I would much rather someone say, hey, this is my budget, this is what I can afford over the next couple months, and then just pick 10 keywords, go really heavy there, and start to gain sales and start to gain organic sales, than someone pick 200 keywords and spend their entire 3-month budget in 24 hours. You'd be much better off in the first scenario, even if it takes you a little bit longer to get up to speed.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And can you speak about the best practices for PPC optimization on a weekly basis, or you can talk about ongoing PPC optimization that you follow, or you want to speak to the audience about what are the best PPC practices to follow, in terms of optimization, not in journal. So yeah.
So the list I'm probably going to give you is going to sound simple, but that's good. Principles and optimizations honestly haven't changed too much. And I would say the longer, I've been doing this for over 6 years. And the longer I do this, the more emphatically I believe the 2 things to get right in your ad strategy: good bid optimization and good keyword targeting. And if you have better bid optimization, you can flip poor targeting for the most part, if you just lower your bid. And so with that being said, the most important thing you can do is bid optimization. Absolutely bar. And so I'm going to give you your keyword bids will typically fall into 4 categories. You're going to have things that are above your targeted costs. You're going to have things that are below your targeted costs. You're going to have things that have clicks without sales, and you're going to have things with low or no impressions. Within those 4 targeting, 2 of them you're going to increase today. That is things with low or no impressions. That is things that are below your targeted costs. Typically speaking, we'll get into nuances as well. As I told you, bid optimization is really important, so I'm going to get people packed. But the other 2 ones, which is clicks with no sale keywords and above target A costs, you're going to lower your bid. Now, here's where the nuances come in, and here's where people start to craft how you're adjusting bids based on what your account needs. If you are struggling to bring down ads and you have a bunch of low impression keywords or 0 impression keywords, recognize that by increasing bids, you are going to be increasing spend. Now, sometimes that makes sense, right? I want to continue to test things. I want to continue to see if I can get more sales out of the things that are performing well, i.e. low ACoS. Great. If your ad spend is fine. If you don't have, if you're I'm struggling with control spend, skip the whole increase bids on lower no impression keyword. Skip it. Don't increase that. Because what you're doing is you're trying to introduce more things that you can test. This point, you don't want to test anything because you're trying to bring down ads, right? Same thing with keywords that are, say, below your targeted cost, right? If you are happy with the sales that you have currently, I might even skip this step as well. Again, ideally you could be pushing more sales, but if goal is at this point is to decrease my ad spend, then maybe you can just increase this, right? If you want to be a little bit more conservative, you can only increase on, say, the targets that have good order volume. Good order volume to me is more proven Meaning, like a single order, can I be confident it's going to convert again? Not really. Like it converted once for me. There's potential, but it's not like, oh my gosh, this keyword crushes it for me. Versus if I have a keyword that's in 10 orders in my account and it's well below my target cost, I'm like, heck yes, this is proven. This is working, man. Like let's increase these bids here. So you can also do that. Like if you want to maximize sales, you need to increase things, but you also want to be a little bit more conservative with what you're doing. Find the things that are proven and below your target date cost, and maybe only increase those for the time being. Leave all the 1 to 2 orders, unless that's all you have, and you only have keywords that are doing 1 to 3 orders, and maybe that's all you look. And then on the flip side, things with clicks with no sales, these are the keywords that waste the most. Some of this is going to fall into testing. A lot of people say, quote, ad waste. At some point, it's like keyword testing / waste. So the distinction between, okay, I'm getting some clicks on this keyword, but it's not converting. It's like, again, if I got 1 click on a keyword and it didn't convert for me, well, if I expect 1 click to convert, I expect 100% conversion rate. Like, if you find a product on Amazon with 100% conversion rate, call me. It's like, you hit the jackpot, you're not going to get that. And so, again, it's like, how many clicks on average does it take me to convert an order? Has this keyword received enough clicks for me to do so, yes or no? And if it has, then you definitely need to lower the bid. And our goals here are to lower the bid lower than the cost, because you really want to drastically cut it down. These are the things that are doing absolutely nothing for you. They're not even driving. In the case of the high A cost, at least it's driving orders, right? In the case of clicking no sales, it's not driving orders at all. These are the things that you're probably going to be the most aggressive with your decrease. And that brings us to the high A cost keywords. And this is also where you want to be very sensitive with how you do that. Because if you lower the bids, you are lowering your visibility in search, right? We just went over that in your first question of like, how do you deal with high CPCs? And I said, well, sometimes the main keyword, you can't really afford to lower bids too much because you lose out in search. So how do you figure out which of those keywords is important? Which ones you want to be sensitive to? So the way that we will do it is we will look at the relative order volume for IQ. When I say relative, I mean like, this isn't even something you really have to calculate. You should instinctively know this about the products if you've been working on the account for any length of time. So you'll be like, oh, I know these products like really has any keyword that works, and like 1 order is like, oh my gosh, thank God I got an order, right? And then you'll have those other products you're like, I have keywords driving like 50 sales a month or 50 sales a week through this one keyword. So like 1 to 2 orders to me is like, it's next to that, right? So that's what I mean by saying relative. And then so what you're doing is you're saying, if I had to get rid of these orders, like if I lower the bid so low that I'm not I'm not showing up in search high enough to get these orders, how much do I think it's going to impact these? In some cases of some keywords, you're like, oh, I know the save cost is high, but I'm really careful here. And when I say really careful, it's not that we don't lower it because the cost is high, it's to what degree do we lower it? So in the case of like just a couple orders, really high cost, I'm like, man, I can probably get rid of it. I'll probably need more aggressive and lower it quite a bit. In the case of a keyword where I'm like, oh, this is my main keyword, I didn't be really careful. Like maybe I'm even lowering it by a couple cents, or maybe I'm saying, you know what, I'm okay with that high cost because I know it's right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and thanks for putting in this way. I have 2 more questions for you, and I'm just going to put these questions together. One is like, how do you optimize or generally take a look at when you have like seasonal products on your catalog, or maybe you are just dealing with seasonal products? And the second question is like, if you have any tips for the upcoming Prime Day for the Amazon sellers.
Yeah. Seasonality is going to play into this question really, really well. So I think I can tackle both of these. The first thing, which again goes for seasonality, and then you can kind of chalk Prime Day up the seasonality is. One, this is outside the realm of ads, make sure you have stock to be able to, now it's the time. So this is the perfect time to ask the question because now you have time to prep. So just make sure that you have enough stock available to be able to take advantage of the seasonal sales. The other thing to be aware of is that typically for holiday season, you're going to have a dip in your sales right before the holiday. This is perfectly normal. The reason why is a lot of times conversion rates decrease at this time. Conversion rates decreasing means a lot of people are clicking, not many people are purchasing. It's a consumer behavior thing. It's not like you did anything wrong. So if this is your first Prime Day and you're like, oh, I'm so anticipating Prime Day, and then you go and do like your business reports 3 days before and you're like, oh my gosh, everyone told me this is going to be amazing. Yeah, just know it's normal. Don't freak out, anticipate it. So with that, with the fact that we know that there's less sellers or less shoppers purchasing right before, they're waiting for the deal, they're holding on. Amazon's going to tell you like, hey, everyone's shopping right now. You should totally increase your budget. You should totally increase your bets because like, look at all this traffic. And you're like, yeah, that traffic is not converting. Do I want to pay for more clicks right now when I know they're not going to translate to a sale? Personally, we don't. Now, there are some more enterprise brands that they see it as like a brand building opportunity. That's totally fine. Our demographic is not really interested in those types of tactics because they can be very expensive and the ROI is not going to be that great, right? Which is fine if you're a bigger brand, you're more scrappy and you got to worry about cash flow. Don't be fooled. So what we'll do is exactly the same for seasonality. We note when we expect that seasonality to hit, which is going to be like with the days of Prime Day, it's very apparent when. For other days like, Mother's Day, Father's Day, I don't think of any other one, Valentine's Day, where it's like we know when it's gonna hit, but consumer behavior, like there's always some shifts year to year, depending on where it lands on a weekend, like those type of things. We will anticipate when the shoppers are going to be really searching and then are going to have really good conversion rate. And then we will increase mainly our budget. We will increase bids on only the select keywords that we know convert well and we have good performance on. So the other tip is linked to any seasonality, do not test day of. What you want to do is you want to be running all of your tests now. So if you've been meaning to run sponsored display campaigns, you're like, oh man, I've been meaning to test these keywords. I want to test product targeting. Test it now, get those campaigns up now. And then because Amazon ads, the data's not really real time. I know with marketing streaming things, people like, it's not real time. And so what you're having to do is you're having to look back at historical performance and say, okay, these are the things that I know work. These are the things that I know don't work for me. So I'm going to increase my bids and budgets on the things that do. And I'm probably either going to not increase, potentially even decrease on the things that I know don't work for me. Well, what happens if you launch a bunch of campaigns? You have no idea. You're shooting in the dark, and you're shooting in the dark with a lot of times a lot of ad spend. So what you're doing is like, do your testing now, figure out what works, and then all you're doing like peak season is just saying, what are all the things I know work, and how can I make sure that I'm getting traffic?
Yeah, pretty cool tips for the Prime Day. And I think those who are watching should follow these tips. And Elizabeth, that's it from my side. If you want to add anything else, feel free.
Yeah, no, it's that I appreciate you having on. I think you had a lot of good questions. So hopefully it gave a lot of good answers, or at least give some tips to people listening.
Yeah. Thank you, Elizabeth, for joining this podcast, and hope to see you in the next one, maybe some other time.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me.